please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Keel for the hand raise, and we shall move on. Tonight, we have an opportunity for public comment. Public comment in this forum is limited to 3 minutes, and items on the agenda or not on the agenda. We do have one public comment, and it is about an item that is on the business agenda. Royal, would you like to come up and make your comment now? Thank you. And state your name and where you're from for the record.
Multi-million candy. Anyhow, I'm Royal Johnson. I live here in Monmouth, Oregon, and I've been on this deal for the city hall for 6 years. Got the seed money to get it going, had to stomp on top of the city manager to do anything. Anyhow, now that it's done, very nice building, got to tour it last week. My one question is, we started out at 8.2, we went to 9 million, now we're 10.6. Okay, 500,000 came out of the general fund, which was for grant money, that was grant for positions that wasn't filled. So what I would like to know is, where did the other $1 million come from? You got to pay the bills. They got to come from someplace. I didn't see them in the general fund when I looked at it, so it's got to be in there someplace. But I would like a written report on where that $1 million came from. And because we're at 10.6 and we still aren't done.
Okay, thank you. We will be having a report on the city hall, and believe me, we have similar questions about the project, the scope, how we're getting it done, and where the money's coming from. So
I missed you there.
we will be getting a report on that. That's our next item of business. And believe me, we all share those questions, and we will get answers as we move through this, because you're right. We need to identify additional funding. So
Thank you.
thank you. And you want to hit the mic button for us, Royal, before? Yeah, it's new for all of us. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, and that does, were there any additional comments, Phyllis, online? Nope, they're just observing, I think. So. All right, so that brings us to the City Hall update. So we will turn it over to City Manager Christy Worster and Kevin Perkins, our Assistant City Manager, and our guest, the man with the spreadsheets and the answers here.
Thank you, Mayor Kuntz. I am Kevin Perkins, the Assistant City Manager, and with me is Randy Isaac from OTAC, who has been the project representative for the city for most of the project. Early on, it was from Western, and then we brought in OTAC when Western was not able to continue to operate as our owner's rep. I want to give you a brief update before I turn it over to Randy to go into a little more detail. We are nearly complete. Swinnerton's projection is to be done by no later than March 31st and be completely out of the building at that time. We still have a little bit of work left, and I'll cover some of that after Randy's done providing your update. Is there anyone who can hear? I can't hear. You're talking to you. I can't hardly hear you. Again. That's a little bit closer, if that helps. So, as I said, we're nearly done with that. We have a lot of polishing up to do. Clearly, we've got some work on the AV system that still needs to get done, but that should be coming up soon. With that, I believe I will turn it over to Randy.
Thank you. So first I wanted to just give you an overview of some of the challenges we had, what the changes were as the project proceeded. This has been gone over in detail in the documents provided to the steering committee. We can provide you anything that you'd like in more detail later on. I'm giving just a narrative to condense it. So as we began the project, keeping in mind we're 97% done now, so now we have the benefit of being able to look backwards at everything. We had a minimal contingency for this project, trying to keep the budget as tight as we could, and we managed as tight all the way through. One of the first items we ran into was during excavation. You anticipate having to dig down and put in a certain amount of gravel for your parking lots. We ran into squishy soil, remnants of the railway yard that used to be here way back in the day, and ended up having to do some over excavation. That was our first ding, almost on day one. Is
Royal, hang on just a second. Can you bring your mic in closer and see if Royal can hear better? I guess
Yes,
he's
I
not gonna
can.
Try.
Is that clear enough? Okay. And I can also speak louder without a microphone, but that gets scary. So that first one was about $55,000 for additional excavation and gravel that went in. We did a little bit of additional public works for some of the drainage lines that were in the area, but that's very minor. One of the biggest items that we had early on is a change in Oregon code between when the design of this building started and when we got our first permit. It's a fine line with the exact date when that occurs. Most buildings have to be designed for radon gas underneath the slab in certain counties of Oregon. That's one of the requirements for Polk County now. Our architects did not get that into the design because the law has changed partway through. That drove a number of the costs and time impacts of this project. We were about ready to pour concrete like within days. And during the inspection time, we realized we need to put a piping system underneath the slab so that if radon is detected, we can evacuate that gas from under the slab. That caused us to slow down, design that element, get the materials, get it installed, and that delayed a number of other items that relied on that concrete slab being in place to figure out how the pieces are ordered so the dominoes continue to fall in line. That was clear back in December. Some of the other significant changes, our elevator was originally designed to only have the top of the shaft go to the top of the roof on the second floor. When the actual submittals came in on what was required for height, we had to bump the ceiling up or the roof a little bit higher in that area to accommodate it. So some of this you don't know until you have your submittals, which is the information from a manufacturer of exactly what's required. So that drove our change a little bit as well. We ended up saving a little bit of money on screening for the HVAC equipment up on the roof. We have walls that are actually tall enough at the parapets on the outside, so you don't have to look up at the heating equipment. Even though code required it from one perspective, we met code requirement from the other with that parapet wall. We saved that money out of the budget. We added some security and access control work that wasn't in the original project. That added a healthy chunk, but it's what got us cameras on the outside, cameras on the inside, and the ability for the system to automatically call the police under certain circumstances. We did have a significant amount of expense and delay on electrical equipment. The big electrical equipment for the building, when we started the project, took over a year to order it and get it here. We experienced a little bit of cost of about $15,000 to get temporary electricity in here that was enough to run the elevator up and down and pass those inspections. And the combination of the electrical delays and the radon delays got passed into the contractor's costs as well. They're having to pay their managers, their supervisors, superintendents to be on site and to maintain their office. So that ended up adding about $69,000 at the end of the day for the extra 2 to 3 months of time. So in the end, we ended up with change orders to the owner of about $418,000 and exhausted all of our contingencies that were on the other side of the budget. So as was mentioned earlier, our total budget with all of the change orders included and all of the other minor costs that the city is funding and experiencing right now ends up at 10,688,617. I think that's all I have to share as far as the costs and the drivers that went into this project that increased those costs.
Counselor Carey.
One of the things that you explained to me in a key communicators meeting that I thought was important, and I don't know that you really detailed it as much as you might have, but there are a number of things, we've got, it's like $40,000 on the delay of the radar, because of the radar mitigation that we had to do. Yeah, the radon. And, my question then was, and I'll ask it to you again, so you can answer for everyone, and that is, you're just simply putting pipes underneath the slab. Why is this $40,000 added on to other parts of, to other elements of the project?
A delay in a construction process is rather expensive. So we had the engineers having to redesign the slab system to incorporate that product, ordering the product and getting it here. And then the installation of that product added a month and a half all on its own just for that radon mitigation element. Mind you, it's not even active yet with fans on the roof, but all of the substance is there. So you basically put a fan on the roof and turn on the switch and it will take care of that issue. I'm hoping I answered your question.
Well, it doesn't really, because what does that have to do with some of the other trades that are delayed because they can't get there? They've got to, as you described it, they need to remobilize, they may be done there, pull their crew off, they've got to bring them back on, and that adds cost.
Yes, apologies. That is one of the biggest significant adders of cost, and in some ways adds just as much as the work itself. The contractors have their schedule lined up usually for months in advance. When we have to shift the direction, all of those trades have to leave. They may not have other projects to go to because it's a relatively short notification that we have this change in the schedule. And then bringing them back again, they may be scheduled heavily already after our project is ready to go again. And it's a heavy encumbrance for them.
Sure.
Nothing they could do because we didn't even have a slab.
Correct.
Right. So it's not like they could start doing anything else.
Yes, it was what we would call a narrow point in the funnel or a critical path item. Time to pour the concrete and start building up, but we couldn't do anything until that one item was taken care of.
And because of that, then that caused cost expense to the contractors, the different trades that ended up being folded into the project.
Yes.
Now, you noted, one of the last that you noted was the low voltage access control and security cameras, and that's for $120,000. That was not part of the original plan?
The original plan simply had card readers to get in and out of the building, but we did not have the video cameras throughout the building or the active portions of those pieces.
And that was just decided that was a critical element to include.
Yes.
There's a number of change orders that you processed and developed. How did you balance the need for those? Some of them are obvious, the new state requirements. Others aren't as obvious. How did you balance the cost of that, given the status of our already stressed budget, and the decision to add that to the project? And who was involved in that decision?
So at the table discussing these options and the opportunities and problems was the contractor and their staff, the architect, and sometimes the principal from the architectural firm. the city manager at the time, and myself, representing the owner's side of the table. And this entire project focused on keeping the costs as low as possible, knowing that the contingencies were minimal. We pushed back on the labor rates, on the materials they chose. We pushed back on the materials in this building, went through at least 2 iterations of here's what the architect wanted, here's what we can afford. Now, what are the appearances and what are the functions we need in this light fixture to meet the requirement of the project, but get the budget back down where it's something we can afford. So the surfaces that you see, the carpet, the cabinetry, we shifted to going to Oregon Corrections Industries to save money on that cabinetry because we could use the cooperative state contract. I'd love to say we did everything we could to keep the budget as low as possible. We're very close to having done that.
You had a lot of challenges along the way. So thank you for a good job.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right. Yep, Kevin.
So I just wanted to go through real quickly a few of the things that we have left to complete. The most notable is the fire alarm system, which was not designed in initially because it was not required by code, which is a little bit of a surprise to us. As you know, we found that one out the hard way. So that's something that's going to go in. We're working with vendors to get some quotes on that, and that's something that we'll definitely look at, making sure we're getting the maximum coverage but not getting gouged in the process. So we're definitely going to watch that. And then consequently, we had to replace the stove in the break room, so that's still coming. Fortunately, the folks over at the Monmouth Appliance Shop had a great option for us, so we were able to purchase that locally through them. We've just started installing all the shelving in the storage rooms throughout the building, which was another one of those that was taken out of the contractor's scope because it would be just cheaper for us to buy some off-the-shelf solutions and install them ourselves. And then we've relocated the drop box since we last updated. That's out on the back porch now. And then you'll start to see more signage going up as well. There are exit signs and things like that. That's not complete yet, but they're in-house and ready to go up. And if you've come in on the Main Street side tonight, you've seen the lit up Monmouth City Hall sign above the entryway, which turned out fantastic. And then we'll also be installing some emergency egress lighting out here in the plaza as well, so that if in the case of emergency, people do need to exit this way, it's not just a big dark patio. So that in itself is under the contract and already within the cost. It was an oversight, I believe, by one of the contractors. So that's going to go in at their cost, not ours. So there's a couple of elements like that for whatever reason, all the conduit and the underground is in. It's just the fixtures did not go in. And then the other big thing is repairing our HVAC system. We had a number of drip pans that were cracked on the install. So those are now getting repaired and replaced. And the rest of the elements should be online within the next couple of weeks. And that's all I have on my list.
And Christy, do you want to go ahead and address for us when we anticipate talking about the revenue side of it, where we are finding the money and how we're going to deal with that?
Certainly. Well, as Kevin stated earlier, we anticipate that the project is going to be complete by the end of March. And so sometime between now and the end of March, we'll come back to the council with a final closeout report. And at that time, we can give you more details about where all of the funding came from. As you know, we sold bonds, we had urban renewal funds involved, and general fund monies that were set aside for the construction project. My assumption is that a lot of it got absorbed into annual budgets over the last few years. And then this year, what the proposal is to make up some of the shortfall that we have is to use some of the ARPA funds that are available and unspent. And we plan to bring that presentation to the council at a future meeting as well. So within the next month or two, you will see follow up, and Kevin will do a final closeout, and we'll give you much more detail at that point.
So we're not expecting $1.5 million bill to just suddenly pop up here. You think most of those costs we've already paid, they've just been absorbed.
Yes, what we're anticipating is that we are going to be about $400,000 to $500,000 overspent this year, of which we would either need to use general fund contingency or ARPA funding for. And staff at this point will be recommending the majority of it to come from ARPA spending. There may be a little bit coming out of contingency, depending on the category of spending, and we're still working through that refinement.
Great. Other question? Thank you, Councillor Carey.
To the degree that it might be necessary, to utilize some funds in the current year, the 24 budget, I would suggest we have that conversation as early as we can. I don't think we need a final closeout number to know we're $1 million in arrears, not in arrears. We're looking for $1 million, whether it's been paid or whether it's coming due. I know we've got a good chunk that we're holding for the contractor that's going to go. But, in case we need to extract some dollars from the current fiscal year out of the general fund budget, I'd suggest we get started early. We got 5 months left in FY24. And if there's going to be any savings, I would suggest we get started early if we need it.
Certainly, I know that staff will be meeting next week to review the ARPA spending, and we could bring that report to you as soon as the next council meeting. The finance director and I also spent today going through our projections in the general fund, at least for management and finance, which is where these expenses are housed. So we have put together our projected spending through June 30th, and we know what that, pretty close what that number is.
Thank you.
Councillor Belts?
I just wondered, given that we've had some sound issues in the room, who will be responsible for ensuring that Mr. Johnson gets answers to his questions? I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I will send a copy of the GoToMeeting video to him.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
And I think really when we have the full expenditures, we will be able to ascertain where those prior expenditures were, because they had to have been absorbed into prior year's budget. So we're going to have to do a little research to see exactly where the spending came from.
I just know if he has the question, that means there's other people that have the questions. I just want to make sure the information is readily available to people so nobody feels there's anything happening behind the scenes.
Exactly. And we can include that in the final report as well.
Okay, any other questions about that? Thank you, Randy. Thank you for being here this evening and the work you've been doing with the key communicators. I've gotten feedback that they felt well informed. The final numbers aren't what we wanted, but the understanding is very clear as to what caused that. So thank you. Thanks, Kevin. All right, that brings us to our next item of business. At our last meeting, we started looking through the profile that we will be using to publicize our opening for a new city manager. And Scott Dadson from the COG is here to join us once again. Earlier today, sorry that it was not a lot earlier today, you received a final draft of this profile, hopefully incorporating all of the comments that you've made. And as we go through this, I want to let you know, because we didn't get it fully out to you early enough, what we adopt tonight, I would like to be substantially the document. But I will entertain suggestions if you find some typos, some things like that. If you just think we need to rearrange things a little bit, any of that will be welcome. We just, at this point though, what we adopt for actual criteria will be what we need to publish. So, but we'll still take input on formatting things through tomorrow, hopefully, and then hopefully we can get it out after that. But
Madam Mayor, I want to make sure we avoid a public meeting issue on that. I think comments on formatting is fine. I think
Yeah.
substantive editing would be problematic to do by
yeah,
email.
I
Okay.
don't want any of that typos. I'll
Okay.
take.
Yep.
I'll take if you have to move a paragraph
Perfect.
or something,
Yep.
and that will all be going through Sabra, not me. So I will at this point then we take a report from Scott, and then we will open a public hearing for any input on the process and the format. Thanks.
Thank you. So what you have in front of you is based upon your last meeting, your input on that. We have two areas that we tried to concentrate on. One, the profile, education, experience, administrative areas of proficiency. And the other was identifying samples of what the position entails, opportunities and challenges as you saw, as you see in front of you, key partnerships. So between those two documents, we were combining a lot into if you recall, we were combining things through the profile. So we've really tried to keep them separate now, and then they come back together again in your profile ad. So, that reads much better. So I just want to highlight the profile at a minimum of what you have tonight in front of you for public comment. In education, we've said a bachelor's degree, and preferably So you don't have to, fair enough, but I think best practice says that you put a hiring range in there. And we would suggest you say it hiring range.
Counselor Carey and then Counselor Oberst.
You know, I sort of switched a little bit. I think that we are in a recruiting mode. I mean, I was one of those, you know, salary commensurate with education and experience. I'm used to that. But we are in the competitive hiring mode, attracting mode. So I think I think we ought to do that. And, you know, well, it's unbelievably high, what you're recommending. It's the price of poker. And I would say that we might want to provide some sort of, because if you put 140 to 170, the person's going to come in and say they want 170. And unless you've got some sort of a negotiator, you know, against their negotiation to say, well, yeah, but you've got the minimum requirements. So we're not going to 170 on you. So if we could have some sort of a qualifier there to say, you know.
Despite Scott saying not having DOQ, depending on qualifications, we do have that on the front page of this profile. It does say the hiring salary range is blank to blank, DOQ. So we are making,
okay.
in that
You're
case, we're
saying
not just saying it, we're not saying it's nebulous based on qualifications, but we will put that in the profiles so that we can negotiate depending on the candidates we attract. That's our goal. Yeah.
Good, as it relates to that. Are we entertaining questions on content?
Yes, sir.
There was a couple things that I thought could and probably should have been embedded in this. Well, you know, in the government and the government budget and finance section, you know, we talk about a lot of the general things that are essential to have in it. We don't mention the Urban Renewal Agency. And that's a bit of a different budgeting and different financing than some of the you know, other more traditional elements. That's a big deal for us. We're paying for a lot of infrastructure with that. And we want somebody that's conversant in that. And I don't know whether you can assume that anybody with those qualifications is going to automatically have that, and that would answer a question.
Yeah, so unfortunately, what Scott is reading off of, edits have been made throughout the last couple of days, not to his list, but to this actual pretty looking one, and we actually added that. So it does say on the area proficiency, government budget and finance urban renewal projects.
And so this came under the,
Yeah, that Phyllis sent out.
okay, well, I didn't get to that.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
I apologize. I
So
hope I
we
don't-
do, nope,
But
that's
thank
good.
you.
That's good. That's
Streamlined.
because you might find others we didn't catch.
Yes, well, under labor relations, we spend a lot of time talking in there about relating to the people that, you know, to employees. And only one sentence related to organized collective bargaining units. You know, we have two unions that we, you know, that our police officers are unionized, and then the Public Works and Power and Light under IBEW. And then we also have the unrepresented group. So, you know, whether or not we want to make this sound more Monmouth and include what our unions are, we could do that. It's probably not a huge deal, but again, if we're out there, I would suggest that we add that.
Well, and let me read you the wording on that.
Okay.
Again, areas of proficiency right up front. Preferred candidate will have experience with labor relations and the collective bargaining process. Later on, in somewhere, in examples of duties, for example, it says ensure fidelity to HR laws and policies and conduct strategic collective bargaining in good faith. So a couple of references to the collective bargaining process.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll need to get to that when we get a candidate or two. Because that's going to be essential. In community relations, and again, I haven't read the new one.
It's okay.
But you know, there's very little reference to Western Oregon in the draft that I read, the one that went out earlier. That is our largest employer. That's students, that's faculty, that's people that are occupying rentals, they're shopping in our stores. Faculty administration and staff are all pretty key people. And one of the things that we have done, if council will recall, every year we come up with a goal setting deal. And it's always to enhance the relations with Western Oregon University. And that, to me, needs to be first, because our successes are linked. And the better job we can do for students that come to Western as a city, the better chance they're going to be successful and the university will be successful. The other.
Do you want to hear that paragraph?
Yes.
The city values its partnership with Western Oregon University, the city's largest employer. And years of declining enrollment have created stress on the university and community. Supporting WU in its efforts to become an Hispanic-serving institution and providing a welcoming, safe community for its students is important to the university's and city's success.
Yeah, and was that in that second part, or was that in the actual profile? Because that's pretty much there, but I'm trying to figure out where, because I read that earlier and I was trying
Yeah,
to.
it's in the key partners. It was split out a couple places, and today
That's right.
it
Yeah,
moved to
okay,
the
yeah, it moved
key
to the middle.
partners.
Is there any reference, I'm going to start asking them this way. Is there any reference to our disabled community? We've got a number of nonprofits, and we refer generically to nonprofits, but we've got a number of properties in Monmouth that provide services to our disabled communities. And there is a relationship that needs to be built with those, and some sensitivities that need to go with that.
That is not called out.
No, local nonprofits, business organizations, and other public agency partners are valued and supported by the city. So you try to capture it there.
That I don't want to lose that because, but I don't know that we need to make an edit here.
One suggestion, I think you capture the diversity of relationship and partnerships that you have out there. Remind council that you will also have opportunities to ask questions. So when you're interviewing. So, and I think how deep you want to dive depends on their answers to some of the more general things. So I think you'll have a process to go down. One of the only things I would advise against is you go down a list, how far does the list keep going? So I think in generalities, I think what you said, if I were to read this as a potential candidate, I would say it's a diverse community. It values institutions and input. It values commitment to people. It values good working relationships. I would sense that through here, and I would want to articulate that back to you. But that's specific. Going down that specific, then the next question is, what's the next one that you put on the list? And so you want to be a little careful of that, but no, it's not called out specifically between both the profile and then what you call the position opportunity challenge page. Now, one of the things the mayor is referencing so that everybody clearly understands this is we took both of these pieces, she and Sabra of the staff, and then put it together in basically the pretty flyer. And it's wonderful and it reads very nicely. Now it reads like, oh, I'm reading about Monmouth, and I'm reading about the staff, and I'm reading about the community, and I really want to put my name into that. And then it gives me the ability to understand the salary range and how I apply and all of those things. So, good job on this, quite frankly, but, it's in both of those parts. So that's as deep as it got. Sorry, long answer.
The last thing that I have, just to check to see whether it's in there, I saw, in the material that I read and it early, I saw no reference to the expectation that the new city manager would embrace the core values that the council's identified. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, community engagement, and sustainability. That was in some of the earlier drafts.
Yep, that got added.
It got added.
Yep, it's its own paragraph. Expected to represent the city in a variety of organizations, venues, show commitment to building on Monmouth's sense of community. The candidate should promote and uphold the city values of community engagement, diversity, equity and inclusion, and sustainability.
Good, yeah, good, okay. I didn't see that in the previous one, so nice work.
Hats off to them. They really
Yeah,
do
right.
some wonderful wordsmithing there.
Yes, Councilor Opers.
Sorry, thank you. After I was getting on Kerry last time. So, let me try again. I've known a couple of city managers who are not big fans of urban renewal. We had to fight tooth and nail to get it past one, to get a district. We had another who was not really being aggressive about borrowing with the district that we had. Is this something that you feel we need to, ask for supportive of urban renewal? Or is that something that comes out in an interview along those same lines? Some managers, here, and I've heard it in other cities, are not big fans of the Main Street program. And we have embraced the Main Street program at long last. And is that something that should come out in interview, or is it something that needs to go in this document? I don't know, just asking. And then the last one I have is a little picky thing, but it's just for clarity for me. And it's on the salary range document you gave us. At the very end, there's a section labeled general and a bullet that says small versus large cities. In 2018, LOC survey found surveys with greater than 10,000 population offer 16,000 more in salary than smaller cities. In 2022, this figure jumped to 40%. Now, it's either it jumped by 40% or it jumped to 40K.
Jump by 40.
By 40,000?
By 40.
Okay.
40%.
40%.
Oh, by 40%. Okay, got it. That just helps me see it. And as John said, I hate the salary range. I'm afraid it looks like that's what we're dealing with now, so.
I think that's the
that's kind of where
market.
I am.
That's the marketplace you're in. So your competition right now, when I say your competition, other cities advertising for managers in the state of Oregon are going to be Newport, Fairview, I believe, is another one. It's open now, and then I think it's called Milton Freewater. Those are the four big ones, and there are more. But those are some of the bigger ones of the same size budgets as you folks.
And just so you know, if you, we were also sent, or included in our packet, appendix including the compensation plan for our non-represented employees. And if you'll notice the city manager contract there that was as of July 1st, that adds up to 154, 152, so 159 as an average.
Right.
It's not that far off.
No, it's
and
not. It's not.
the range of 140 to 170. The other thing you want to look at, for example, and you can get this even from our budget book, which is our highest paid employees under the city manager. And so, of course, we want to try and keep some distance there. And so you want to consider that as well. And in our budget document, that those next highest salaries, I believe, are listed at like 140 something. So also for consideration. So if we make the bottom of the range too low, that will be the compression with department heads. And if we don't make a broad enough range, I am, we'd love to attract someone with the experience we are requiring. This may be what it requires.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that last statement, but it still gives me heartburn to borrow from my dear friend, Counselor Carey.
Yeah, it's a heartburn thing. Counselor Belz.
One tiny picky little thing. We do reference Western Oregon University. Right behind that, the first time we mention it, we should put WU in parentheses, because then we later reference WU and don't, and it, anyway, let's just do a tiny picky thing. The other thing is I am 100% behind putting this range, and I think 140 to 170 seems, I know it seems heartburn, but I just was in the workforce 2 years ago, and that's not uncommon at all. And what we will do is we will end up having phone call after phone call after phone call if we don't list the range. Right. Because then staff is just going to have to be handling those phone calls. Because if I was applying for a position, the first thing I'd want to know is this within my range? Is this something I'm interested in? So
Yeah, and-
I think it's essential that we list.
And we'll put down, certainly, we'll try to travel all that stuff towards those calls, towards me and those kinds of things. That's part of what you expect out of me in this process. And so we'll try to do that. When I don't know the answers, that's when I'll call the staff and say, can you answer this for me? And then we try to give that information to everybody. It's kind of like an RFQ or an RFP process.
But people will call here first.
Oh, they
just
will.
know.
Yeah. They will.
Scott,
Counselor Over.
you just mentioned that we're in competition with Newport. Our man on the inside knows what's going on. He tells us we're in competition with Newport. They're looking. And their last salary was 160, and their range for this current search is 150 to 180.
Yep.
So and they're by this population count smaller than we are by about 400. So do we need to consider that? Just asking.
Well, they had a long-time manager too, so you've got to put that in, but they also have an airport we don't have and other things. So I think it's consideration, but I think we're fair there.
Their desire was for experience. And so they were willing to do that. And I think if the current manager had stayed, if they're at 160 and had received a bump, you'd be up in the mid 160s to 170 range. So you'd be pushing up that higher end anyways. So they broadened theirs. I felt that was too broad for you folks. I think 140 to 170 is more within your standard of living and that compression. The other thing is, because we know the average, if someone says, well, and if you have the minimal to mid amount of experience, you have a number of 140 up to 159 at the average. If they're coming in with more than that and you like that candidate, then you're sitting on that side of median. But I think it's an attractive range to attract a candidate. So I do believe it. Hope I'm not wrong, right? So.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
So just a clarification, did I hear that we are going to put in the range and then put DOQ as well under it? So, okay, just making a clarification. Thank you.
Counselor McKeel, did you have anything on this? Counselor McKeel, did you? I don't know what she's doing. If she can hear us or not. All right, maybe we'll type a message.
She's going out and coming back in.
Yeah, she lost sound again, so she's going to log out. Any other questions? And we'll open the public hearing portion in case we have anyone here interested. Yeah, I think she logged out. She'll bump back in. Phyllis, we can be sure and let her back in.
I did just want to say, what a wonderful document this is. This is a tremendous amount of work. I've done this before. Thank you for this. This is fantastic.
It's really the mayor and Sabra. I
Thank
mean,
you.
they're the ones
Great
who
job.
really
It looks-
took
Looks
plain
beautiful.
reports and made them into readable
Thank you.
documents that flowed very nicely.
All right, Councilor McKeel is back with us. Any comments, questions, observations? Phyllis just typed the question to her to ask if she had any questions, so we'll see what her response is. Now we cannot hear you, even though it looks like your mic is on.
At least she can hear now.
All right, thanks. Oh, that's funny. It shows that your mic is on, but we can't hear you.
Mayor, would you like me to step aside if anybody has any questions?
All right, at this time, I will open a public hearing to take input on the city manager position profile, the requirements we've discussed, the what we've identified as skills and experience, and what we've identified as a salary range are all items we would take input on. I am not seeing any, and it doesn't look like we have anyone online, so going once. I will close the public hearing. And again, take this opportunity to let folks know if you have typos, if you find something that you think is basically the qualifications, experience, all of that is set. We have now accepted that. If we approve this, but any other small things that you notice, please send those to Sabra tomorrow so that she can get this completely cleaned up. And then from this, I think you write a small ad or something, Scott, that.
Yes, and so from there, we'll write an ad, and it will refer to this document. So people will be able to go to that document, and in that document, we'll have where they can go to apply. And so so it's clear, we'll accept the applications through NeoGov. We use NeoGov because in government services, at least, if you're applying through NeoGov and you've done it before, your application's already in that, already stored in there. So it becomes kind of a common place it's a common market for people to work in. We like it. It's very efficient. We'll do that. Now, my schedule, I just want to kind of give you at least a briefing of the schedule. Christy, is that fair enough? First off, we're going to try to have the ad up by Friday. So we'll have it loaded in, and then we will start sending it. We will start sending it to LOC, AOC. So those are your state associations, ICMA, especially in the Pacific Northwest. There's a subsection to that, and then it goes into the larger ICMA. My recommendation is definitely to advertise through ICMA. That's where most professionals in the field are looking for those kinds of things. We'll put it in ELGL, and one of the things I like about that is the young, what you call the young bucks in public administration, and I like that because it's well viewed by a diverse audience in public administration across the country, quite frankly. But so we'll put it in there as well. We're a member, and we'll have it on our webpage, and of course you'll have it on your webpage too. So you'll have those access points. Is there anything I'm missing on targeted areas to advertise that I have missed? I just didn't know if you had anything specific that you wanted to get to.
Yeah, go ahead, Counselor Carey. In answer to that, Counselor McKeel also had her hand up. So.
You're the expert on this, so I think we're going to probably defer to you in terms of, where the fertile ground is. One of the things that I'm scanning, and again, it's first time I'm looking at the document, and it is good. Do you note on there when the review of applications will begin?
Good question. So that's part of the calendar here. So if we put it out on the 9th, I like to run it. First off, it is an open until filled.
Right.
So we'll say that with a first review date of, and I'd like to put down, there's a couple dates that we could use, but I was going to recommend March 11th or 15th as being a first review date. That doesn't mean somebody can't come in after that, but that gives, it lets people know that if they're interested, they need to work on their application and work on getting the materials in. Will require a cover letter, of course, and a resume in addition to the application form itself. If the 11th is fine, that would allow us time to call them and then meet with you. I believe you meet on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays. Okay. It would allow us to have a conversation with you folks possibly on the 19th at the earliest. And I'm looking to Christy. We're going through calendars today, just trying to help you guys work through this. What that does is that allows council some time for us to then make next decisions. Do you like the grouping you have? Do you want to go out again? That's a fair thing to ask amongst yourselves about that. And then based upon that direction, we will then start up the next parts of the process. Written comments, possibly Zoom interviews, before you get to an open process where you've really culled it down and you really then say to the folks, this is going to be open now, and now we're going through, maybe some focus groups, maybe a meet and greet, however we want to do that, but we're going to play like that. In the ad, we're going to say this will have an open component. So we're going to be very upfront. The way I handle that is I say, the council is interested in talking to you in the next round. It will involve A, B, and C. Are you still interested? And we try to keep asking them that so that they're decision points for them and you folks as you go through the process. Some people get a little nervous.
Thanks. Yeah, we also say finalists may be part of a public process right on the front of this. So a couple things. Go ahead, Counselor Carey.
Just, you'd have enough time if you're going to begin reviewing. I'm assuming that you would do some, once you get a batch in, for argument's sake, end of February, you get 2 or 3 and you're going to begin reviewing them then?
We take a look at them.
Yeah. And so you'll be able to make that initial screen. You got 8 days from the announced time to begin and then present to us. If you're going to begin on the 11th and then see us on the 19th.
Because of your...
April 19th, you mentioned.
Oh, April or March?
I put down March.
Oh,
I thought
I
March,
wrote
yeah.
April.
And what I'm saying is first review will take place.
Right.
It's open until filled, but first review of... Now, let's say we get to the 8th or 9th and we don't have them. What I would like to be able to do is be able to change that and extend that time. And then what we usually do is we'll say that again in writing, and that lets them know that we're still looking for applicants and we extend.
So that initial review would be basically about 5 weeks. Or 5 weeks. People feel that's comfortable, or do we want to stretch it out a little bit for that initial review period?
Madam Mayor, that would be 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think the 11th is 4.
Well, but that's just giving them time to apply. I mean, that you give them time to get their materials together and submitted. I would think that's adequate time.
If you want more time, we can do that. But that's council's call.
I think that's adequate as well. I think it's plenty of time to decide if you want to apply and put in your materials. And it's first reading. So like you were saying, it's the first review. So it's not like we can't keep it open or keep reviewing after March 19th. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
The
Comfortable with
reason I'm trying to keep it as tight is to give room for margin for error, number one. Number two, want to allow council, you have a very busy schedule starting after that with budget. So you have a lot of things going on, and we want to be able to work that through, work review processes and initial things and get things set through April, whatever that may be, possibly then first live interviews where we actually do some of that more open stuff in possibly after the first week in May. The only caveat I have is I have to fly back to North Carolina to see my son graduate from college. His mother will kill me. Seriously, she's good with a gun. So I'm scared of her.
So Councilor
scared.
McKeel does have a question. I'm going to get to her.
Gosh.
All right, she's going to type her question to us, I think.
Christy, is there anything on the basic calendar that I've missed?
No, I think for this initial round, March 19th, we'd be planning an executive session. Just for my information, do we generally hold those at the conclusion of the council meeting or in advance? After? Okay.
After. Sure.
Go ahead, Carol, and try again. Kevin's messing with the AV here. Now try it.
You did mention.
So, yeah, what I had to do was unmute my speaker. So we were just listening to that through the speaker on my laptop. And if I tried to put the microphone up there, it reverbs. So the question was about in academia, there are other journals and other channels that are actually aimed at diverse candidates for various positions. Is there anything like that in our CCMA world?
What I would say are two things. ICMA, I think, has done a very concerted effort to have some of that diversity represented in how they're reaching minority candidates and things like that, diverse candidates. So what I will do is make a special reach out to ICMA to let them know that we're really interested in this getting to that crowd. I think ICMA does a very good job. I think OCCMA does a very good job. So I think those are very responsible organizations. What I will also say is you all will have a copy of the ad. And when you have that with all the links, you can send it to people that you know in places that you associate with to say, hey, look, a lot of times, just getting that word out, and we'd like to get it out. But I don't know, Carol, of anything specifically outside of what ICMA is doing. Christy?
Yes, Scott, Oregon City County Managers Association partners with Oregon Latinos in local government. It's one of our subsidiary organizations, so that might be a location where we could advertise. And I believe that ICMA also has a chapter, National Black.
Yeah, that's the one that's the one
Yes.
I think of.
I
But I
don't
think
know
they've
the
gone even
specific name
further
of that
than
one.
that into a Latino. And so, yes, I will, with all the organizations, say we're looking for channeling through that. And so we'll try to, we will do that.
Okay.
Great, thank you for that question, Counselor. Any others? There is a motion in your packet.
I move to adopt the city manager position profile as amended with the hiring salary range of 140 to 170 and direct staff and the Mid-Willamette Valley COG to proceed with advertising the position.
Thank you.
Second.
Can we clarify your motion? That's 140,000 to 170,000?
140,000 to 170,000 salary range.
And
Second.
you second the amendment. Thank you, Counselor Salinas Oliveros and Counselor Oberst for that motion. I'm going to go ahead and get a roll call just because we're talking about this. So, Phyllis?
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
Counselor McKeel. I'm assuming you said aye. Okay. Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will get that out. And again, thank you, Scott, very much for your assistance on this, and many, many thanks to Sabre, because it is hopefully the kind of thing that will catch folks' eye. We know we've got a great offering here, and hopefully we can get some great people interested in it. So at this time, our next item of business, speaking of the money and the budget, we'll invite our finance director, Susie Marston, to present our second fiscal quarterly report.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow councilors. My name is Susie Marston, for the record, Finance Director for the city. Tonight, I'm here to present to you the second quarter financial report for fiscal year 23-24. Overall, everything looks great across all funds. I was going to comment on two funds. But first, I wanted to let you know that I do have the draft audit report for fiscal year ending June 30th, 23 that I'm reviewing. And the auditors are going to be here March 19th to present that to you. So we'll have that on a future agenda. I had some comments for the general fund concerning the city hall costs and the plan to cover with ARPA funding, but our interim city manager articulated it very well. So I think I'll leave it with what she explained unless anybody has questions. I don't want to duplicate because she hit on all the points I was going to share with you tonight. So the next one I wanted to share with you, let's see, I want to make sure I don't miss anything. In the Urban Renewal Fund, so as you know, the city budgeted $5 million to be borrowed, proceeds to put into the fund. We're actively engaged with our bond counsel and municipal advisors to get that going. It's not looking like we're going to need to borrow the full 5 million. It looks like it'll be 4 million or slightly under. So they're currently analyzing the market right now, helping us to determine what the best path forward is for us in the way of the loan type. So whether it be a bank loan or public sale. So we'll be meeting with them again soon. And once we have more information, I'll be back with an update on the path that we're going to choose moving forward. And then also we'll return with a resolution where the council will authorize the borrowing and give authority to staff to work through the process. It's very similar to the urban renewal loan that happened in 2021 or 2020. I think it was 2020. Anyway, that's the Urban Renewal Fund. Next, the CIP projects. Again, a very comprehensive update from our department heads. For the most part, in Q2, design work took place, and we're anticipating some construction in the Q3 on public works projects. You'll note on the Highway 99 Madrona crossing, they let out the bid, selected a contractor, but ODOT had some archaeological review requirements, so that set us back a little bit, but still looking to do some construction in the Q3 on that. And then on the investment side of things, interest rates are up by about 0.37% from the Q1. Our interest earnings compared to this time last year, they're about 10 times more than last year. I think in addition to the interest rates being higher, in some funds we do have higher than anticipated fund balances. So that also contributes to a higher earning revenue. So that's it for my report. So I would open it up for questions if you have any.
Well, you answered Councilor Carey's questions before
Oh, good.
he even got to ask me.
Yay!
Susie, I just want to say I like seeing so much green, so little yellow, no red.
Yeah,
Keep
me
up the good
too.
work.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Councilor McKeel has a question. So again, I'm going to just unmute my speaker.
Yeah, we have Chief Haynes here too, but I'll give it a go. Yeah, with the Measure 110, that basically lowers the ability of the officers to deal with a traffic stop involving drugs. So, what did you say? He's coming up.
We're calling Chief Isaiah Haynes to the stage. And as we all know, the legislature convened yesterday, and this is a #1 topic of consideration there. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Thanks.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Yeah, and Councilor McKeel, that's a great question. Measure 110 is specifically about drugs. And yes, it's, you could say it's decriminalization that's happened over the last few years. And so we are not making as many arrests or those kind of things. And municipal court doesn't see a lot of that, but I'll say there's a number of factors. I wasn't ready maybe for a report on this, but there's a whole lot of things that go into that. This year, we trained 3 new officers. So over the course of the year, there's 3 people that were going through training that weren't on the road actively working, you know, and so we have those shifts covered, but they're minimally covered with somebody who's training, and they're not doing as much proactive activity. Is a big thing. Traffic stops is one. One of the things that the finance director mentioned also is not just the Measure 110, but it's the legislation that talks about how we do our jobs. So the stops we make, there's a lot of violations that were made secondary violations, which means that we can't make traffic stops for those anymore. We can address those for other reasons after we've made a stop, but there's a lot of things that have gone into that. So long story short, we had fewer people on the road that were able to do those things, but also there were some major changes that there's a lot less that we can do proactively, and whether it's making stops or dealing with things like drugs.
Yep, thanks. That answered your question. Anything else? All right. Seeing nothing. I don't think we have an action there, so nope, we'll let you go.
Thank you.
That brings us to our reports for this evening. For the mayor's report, actually just have been working diligently to try to get this profile, not only incorporating the comments we made, but as you can see, making it something that we think will attract folks, and so we can get this out and going as soon as possible. I know many of you have already RSVP'd to the Council of Governments Annual Awards Dinner, and if you haven't, I know that registration is open and Phyllis can help you with that. We're hoping to have a great evening to really honor some of the tremendous work going on in our region and some of the wonderful people doing that work. So hopefully you can join that. I don't have a lot else, except I will at this point talk about board and commission appointments. We had last time an application that we kind of put on hold pending a potential applicant to the Tree Advisory Board, and you should have received an application for Will Fargo. Will is an arborist and has mentioned a lot of great volunteer experience, supporting different sorts of activities around trees and tree advisory things. So I would like to consider his appointment to the Tree Advisory Board. And we did confirm with Michael Jewell that he would willingly take his second choice, which is to serve on the Parks and Rec board. So I definitely have those 2 appointments to bring forward to you this evening and would entertain a motion.
So I just want to thank you for holding off. And I had a wonderful conversation with Will Fargo myself, and I was very excited that he was willing to step up take the tree board slot. And again, thanks for entertaining my, it came on to the tree board as liaison, and they had 3 members, and now we're at a full rack of 7. So that's exciting.
If you approve this.
And so I'm going to move that we approve Michael Jewell to the Parks Board, and what's the other one? Oh yeah, Will Fargo to the Tree Board. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst for the motion and Councilor Belts for the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Counselor McKeel, so we'll put those two on. We had announced also an opening on Planning Commission, and we do have one opening there. We have received one application. We've been going through a process where we've done an interview for those folks, and I just am interested in the council's will. I believe Scott has been on Planning Commission and had to take a leave of absence. He's interested in returning. So I am willing to appoint if that's the will of the group.
Madam Mayor, I've been the liaison to planning for about 4 years, I guess, and Scott was really missed, I think, but when he had to step away. He's a thoughtful guy. He does his research. He does his work. He doesn't come with an agenda. If we're ever going to just direct appoint somebody, I think he would be one that I would certainly support based on the experience that I've had and watching him. And John, you would have worked with him as well.
I served on planning with him, and I would echo exactly what you said, John. Thoughtful guy, comes prepared, and I never once saw a preordained agenda. He listened to what was going on to come to his decision.
Therefore,
I would move to appoint Scott to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion to appoint Scott Campbell to the Planning Commission by Counselor Oberst and a second by Counselor Salinas Oliveros. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. And Counselor McKeel with the raised hand. All right, thank you. That takes care of those folks. And moving on to what all those boards and commissions are doing. And I'll let Counselor Oberst start, and we'll move this way if anyone has anything.
A quick one, we had a special meeting of the Traffic Safety Commission in which the commission looked over the Transportation Commission ordinance proposal, and with one very minor change said okie dokie, so we should be seeing that soon as a council.
Okay, anyone else? Counselor Belts, you didn't have yours? Oh, yeah. Thank you for staying away, sick people. Thank you for staying away from everyone else, sick people. I appreciate that. Counselor Carey.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the Planning Commission will meet tomorrow at 7 p.m. And on that agenda, the primary agenda item is a presentation on accessory dwelling units, education, and outreach. When we did our housing production strategy, one of the things that came out of that was the need to educate our residents about the need and the different types of housing that might be constructed to fit that need. And Carter Craig has sort of taken on the job of providing the education, and he's starting out with the Planning Commission. So he's got a nice shiny fancy brochure and all that kind of stuff that will be not as impressive as the one that you and Saber came up with, but not pretty darn good nonetheless. And it's about getting the information out in terms of how you do it step by step. I've read the material, and I think that it stops short of necessarily advocating that we all need to go out and do this. But for those that are interested, this is how you do it, and this is how you do it well the first time. So anyway, it's a step. There'll be more. I'm anticipating. Suzanne's got a full committee, so she can do all she wants. So anyway, it's going to be good. It's an interesting deal, and the people that were here are sort of representing a homeowners association in that southwest corner. And I mentioned to Kimberly that they may want to, log in and watch or attend because that may become of interest in their homeowners association in that area. So anyway, good stuff. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Yes, Counselor Salinas Oliveros.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quick information from Arts and Culture. The Tiny Art Show was a huge success. And thank you for the really great pictures that were taken. Was that you, Sabra? Yeah? No, they were really great. Thank you for doing that. And you will be seeing sometime in the near future a 5-year plan that we discussed that's pretty much done. And then we're also going to bring forward a mural code as well and suggesting, getting some feedback on that as well. So some good things coming from Arts and Culture.
Always good things coming from Arts and Culture. And Counselor McKeel has not had another library meeting. She reported at the last one, so no report. And I do want to mention, Council received a copy of a letter that was Suzanne got about some concerns about our short-term rental and a variance that we had given. Those folks wanted to make sure everyone got the letter. I think you did. And I'm going to ask Suzanne, not if you're prepared this evening, that's great. I was just going to see if you had wanted to do any follow-up with that. Let us know about some of the issues and then some of the follow-up. Thanks.
Oh, learning the new microphone system here. Okay, without worrying about it. You can tell it's my first meeting, but good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor. I didn't have a formal presentation or anything planned for this evening, but just to let you know that staff is investigating the concerns that were raised in the letter, and so I will reach out to the Ross and let them know what we're able to find on that, and also the short-term rental property owner, just to make sure that we do have a process for formal complaints and to revoke short-term rental permits if they're not being followed. So we will follow through with that. And if the council would like to do a work session at some point in the future to learn or discuss more about the ordinance and how it's working, I'm happy to do that or weave that into one of our future housing work sessions as well. So thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, John, why don't we wait and get a formal presentation from her later after she has a report complete? Or do you just?
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thanks. Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, Suzanne. All right. That takes us to our city manager's report. Christy Worster.
I'm going to start with the finance department tonight. The finance director has been busy preparing the budget packets for all of our department directors, and those have been distributed to the various departments, and the department heads are beginning their work in coming up with their projected spending through the end of this fiscal year. The budget committee is going to hold its first meeting on April 30th, which I think you all know. I also want to congratulate Susie and her department on another fine job in submitting the GFOA Distinguished Budget Presentation and receiving that prestigious award again this year. So that's a feather in her cap. With regard to urban renewal, we've talked about moving forward with our investment advisors. So you've already got that information. The Community and Economic Development Department has created a housing resources website page. And so I just wanted to point that out. I had that in the Friday notes, but for anyone that may be listening or watching the meeting later, there's a housing resource page available now on our website. And also a reminder that the Love Local utility credit program is underway this month for the month of February. And please continue to shop with our participating merchants. And finally, our staff met with the consultant that will be facilitating the one-year check-in for our goal setting. We met with them on Monday and started the preparations for our meeting. And this is just a reminder to all of you that we will have our goal setting session on Saturday, February 17th, beginning at 8:30 a.m. This will be a half-day session. And we will conclude with lunch, and we'll be right here in the council chambers on that Saturday. And that concludes my report.
Okay. That brings us to council comments and announcements. Anything for the good of the order? Counselor McKeel, so I'll go ahead and turn on my speaker again and turn off my mic. Great, thank you. That February 24th date for at the library for the Black Pioneers speaker, which looks very exciting. Lots of great stuff going on here in February. Anything else? Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Counselor Oberst. All in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.